That's what I need to do, right? Anyway, so PPE. So PPE is your last defense. It's the protection, the only last protection you have between the dangerous things, and your protection, your life could be your life. So in the years of experience that I've been involved with the oil and gas industry since 1977, 1979, I started doing safety for a company I was working with. So that's how I got my experience throughout the years. And so I do it because I believe in it. I do it from the heart, and I love what I do. And if one thing, when you walk out of this class this afternoon after the class, after the training, after the session, you know that you're not gonna walk out the same as when you came in. There's something you're gonna learn today. If even it's one item, if you it's just one little thing, is make a difference. If that little thing is gonna save your life or somebody else's life, your buddy or whatever, uh, or people that you work with. So we'll start here. The objectives for a job hazard analysis is to identify different types of hazards, the employee responsibilities related to personal protective equipment. You know, the employee has a responsibility as just as much as the employer does. The employer has a responsibility of providing you with the proper PPE, depending on the type of job you're going to be doing. Usually, when a new person, an employee walks into an office or starts a new job, they usually go through an orientation and tell you what your job is going to entitle, what are you going to be doing, and is there any hazards you're going to be involved with? Is there any potential dangers that you're going to be involved with? So that's the appropriate PPE you're going to be handed out to you when you start working. Um, Whether it's safety glasses, goggles, whatever it is. Um, Too many accidents occur because people neglect to use the proper PPE. And all it takes is, remember this, all it's going to take for an accident is just a blink of an eye. That's all it's going to take. Whenever you least expect it, it's going to hit you. Okay. So make sure that the select the proper PPE, review factors such as the type of hazard, the level of the risk, and the limitations of the PPE when selecting PPE. So make sure that the selection for PPE is done, the correct way, so where you can uh, be able to use that PPE appropriately, whether it's uh, hand protection, body protection, whatever it is. Review the proper donning and doffing of PPE, inspecting the equipment for damage or wear, and cleaning and storing the PPE. It's your responsibility once you hand that PPE to you. It's your responsibility to make sure that the PPE is clean and hygiene, proper hygiene, because you can contaminate yourself again if you don't use it or you don't clean it up. Make sure it's maintained clean, properly cleaned up. And the most frequently cited citations on neglecting PPE is, for example, protection. That's usually in construction. That's where OSHA usually has a lot of citations, on the PPE in construction because they neglect to use the proper fall protection. I was doing a review on one of the job sites. One of these companies called me to go out there and do an inspection on a job site. They're pouring concrete. You have about 20, 30 people, when they have a great big slab out there. So uh, they wanted me to go out there and kind of do a walkthrough and check and see if the guys are using everything in the safety end of it. So I stopped by there, and there's about 20 people working up there. And the first thing I do is approach the concrete guys up there, and I pulled one of the guys out to the corner. I said, how come not using your safety glasses? He said, "Wow, they're too hot and it's sweaty and it's falling in my eyes. It bothered me quite a bit." I said, "Just to take a couple of seconds, take it off your face, wipe them down, and then put it back on again. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is if something falls in your eye, you're going to lose an eye or your eyesight, and you have kids. You're not going to be able to see your kids anymore, your wife. So it's a big difference. If you don't protect yourself, you have to be able to take the responsibility, and that's employees' responsibility is to make sure if they give you a PPE, it's because you're going to need PPEs at one point or another. So utilize it and take care of it. Respiratory protection is another one. You've seen these people working on construction sites right now, the sheetrock guys and the painters and the masonry guys. They cut the concrete and blocks and stuff. You seen them everywhere? A respiratory protection or mask? Hardly ever, if never, hardly ever. So what's happened is, it may not affect you immediately right now, but a few years down the road, when you get up to about 40, 50, 60 years old, that's when you start having respiratory protection. I mean, respiratory problems, pneumonia, silicosis, possible cancer. So that's how come we have to use all the PPE, appropriate to you. So know your hazard communication, and that's general industry. Scaffolding, people in construction, usually in scaffolding. That's where most of the citations are. OSHA does. Okay, if you Google Dollar General, you know what Dollar General is. If you Google Dollar General OSHA citations, they just got a citation for $12 million. You know, in the whole United States for neglecting to have a safe place to work. They had blocked aisles, they have blocked exits, and they have other citations. That's $12 million is a lot of money. So they got that citation through for so many years. Now just go ahead and Google it, and you'll find out. And fall protection is mainly in construction because they work in a lot of heights. You can see on those on off of those pictures, pictograms there on the site, the illustrations there on the right. You know, guys sliding off the roof, falling off the roof. You know, I had a friend of mine that used to work at Halliburton. He worked for so many years, just almost as many as I had, and so he had some kind of a conflict, some disagreement. So he left and retired, and I think it was just a few weeks after he retired. He was doing some work at his house on the roof. He fell down and landed on the sidewalk, and that's what killed him. He lost his life, just barely retired. So he worked so many years, and then he loses his life at home. And safety man, he was a safety man. But why? Because all of us are just as human. We make decisions. I've done dumb things in the past. I mean, when I was just starting off, I didn't know any different. Nobody ever showed us about PPE training, a lot of safety. So you have to believe in it. You just can't. You have to do. Give you protection because there's a reason for it. Okay. Hazard control of hazardous energy. In a lot of places, sometimes you work in places where there's high energy or hazardous energy under pressure, maybe electrical, possible explosions, fire hazard. There's a lot of hazards that we deal with on a daily basis. Have you ever noticed some people fueling up your cars at the gas station and they're sitting up there with a phone on the side? You ever seen that? You don't know how dangerous that is. And I've made an effort sometimes and talk to these people, make them aware that they have something very explosive in their hands. It's a potential hazard. I was driving home the other day, yesterday, in fact, yesterday, and they were doing a trench with a backhoe, and some guy was in the trench almost up to the top. You couldn't hardly see the gentleman in the trench. So I stopped by there. I said, maybe none of our business, but I mean, if you see something, say something. Now, all you can do is make people aware, and if they don't want to hear to it, then but you've done your part. So if you don't do or you don't advise or tell somebody and let somebody just go ahead and work in a dangerous situation like that, you're just as guilty as the person committing the infraction. So, say something and you've done your part. So I told the guy, I got off my car and told the guy, I said, a young man, probably about 22, 23 years old. I said, if the ground caves in, what do you think is going to happen to the young man over there? Well, they were open their eyes up to you and says, well, probably get stuck in there. Yeah, I said, yeah, he may lose his life. So, where's your supervisor? And he said, well, he's not here. Well, I mean, I just made him aware that they were in a very dangerous situation there, okay? Because people had already been killed in the past for not adhering to the safety rules or safety procedures. So powered industrial trucks is the same thing as a forklift. Okay, have you ever seen people operating a forklift? Sometimes they use it as a toy, play racing with it. So, always say something. Um, Machinery and machine guarding. Oh, that's one of the another things. It's very dangerous. If you use machinery, I've seen people use a saw. What they do, they put a little wedge to keep the guard from coming down because it's easier for them to just run instead of holding the guard up. So they run it through there. What happens if the guard falls off and you stick your finger in there accidentally? You know, you'll be losing a finger, part of a hand. And I've seen several accidents that happen like that. Okay, so the personal protective equipment, PPE, is any safety equipment workers wear to prevent injury in the workplace. So that's the last defense you have. The PPE is the one that's protect you from the danger. Okay, so you have to be able to make sure that you know exactly how you do it, how you actually uh, use your PPE properly. Some people don't use it properly, don't know how to do it. So you get training when you first start a new job. That's how they get you to an orientation, and that's the proper they give you the orientation to be able to expose you or tell you what potential dangers you gonna be maybe confronting or practically working into or possible working in with the dangerous situations. So ask questions, don't just agree to everything. You have to ask questions. In some cases, you may be the ultimate person making a decision: shall I do it or not do it? So if you see a danger and you feel that it's going to be in danger, potential danger for you, refuse a job. Just tell them, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. So you know, so training is required by OSHA, because OSHA was actually established in 1970. Congress was the one that put it into motion. And why do you think OSHA came about? Because there are too many people injured, hurt, losing life. So OSHA said we have to protect our people there, and that's how OSHA came about, 1970s. So employees must be trained to know at least the following: when is PPE necessary? What PPE is necessary? So it depends on the task you're gonna be doing. Come on in. So depends on the job you're gonna be doing. That's the type of PPE you're gonna be required to wear. How to properly don, doff, adjust, and wear PPE, and the limitations of PPE. There's also limitations. You can't use just any PPE for just everything. You got to know what the limits are. What type of PPE are you going to be using in order for the task that you'll be involved in? Proper care, maintenance, and useful life and disposal of PPE. If you use PPE, make sure inspect it before you use it, and also make sure it's cleaned up and wiped down clean to where it'll be ready for the next time you get to use it or supposed to use it. So, what is a hazard? A hazard is something that could cause you harm, can cause you hurt, or maybe cause you to lose your life, amputation. It could be various of things. So that's a potential hazard. Um, in practical terms, a hazard often is associated with a condition or activity that, if left uncontrolled, can result in an injury or illness. Okay. So identifying hazards and eliminating or controlling them as early as possible will help you prevent injuries and illnesses. So so when you have a certain degree, certain possible job or a task you're gonna be doing, always try to analyze what the task you're gonna be doing. Analyze it first, and even ladies at your house, when you go at your house, you almost of the time you do your own cleaning, right? The bathrooms and toilets and the whole bit, right? So what kind of chemical you're gonna be using? You use certain chemicals, and you sniff it out, then you come out of the bathroom or toilet, the bathroom, and you start coughing because you inhale some of those toxic fumes. So you need to be taking some kind of prevention measures to either use a mask, some kind of respirator to be able to protect yourself. Because, like I said, it may not affect you right away, but down the year, 30, 40 years from now, you start developing maybe other problems in your body and your health. So, possible cancer. You see all these lawsuits sometimes in television. If you were involved or you had some kind of involvement with this chemical or that chemical, and so they file a lawsuit in your behalf. So but why wait to that? Try to protect yourself before you get to the situation. Identifying hazards and eliminating control or controlling them as early as possible will help you prevent injuries and illnesses in the long run. Okay. What potential hazards could be exposed to? Well, potential hazards could be fall hazards. You have dropped objects, and I have instances to where I see pictures of a person that received or was at the bottom of an item that fell down, went through his body, came out the back of his leg, didn't kill him because it missed all the vital organs, and so he survived. But the pictures after his previous before surgery and after surgery, they're gruesome, and he was just fortunate and blessed that he survived. But it's very very simple, very unsafe, that like I say, it doesn't take very long. And I keep saying, it's just a blink of an eye. That's all it's going to take. So fall hazards is one. Impact, something hits you on all of a sudden, you're not expecting it. Unexpectedly, you get hit by something, a penetration, or something that comes at you. Penetration, you possibly by accident you step on nail or a sharp object in the area you work with. You didn't see it, and you step on it, and it goes right through you, and that would be pretty hurtful, right? It'd be kind of painful. Compression, roll over, something that comes at you and presses you up against the wall. We had an incident here on that construction site here on the expressway. They're doing it in the expressway, and somebody was working in a trench. It's an open pit, and they're adding a pipe, a concrete pipe inside. Somehow or another, they got their cable tangled up with the item. When they pulled it up, it rolled, that item, the big tube, rolled over and pinned the guy, an employee, up against the wall with a concrete pipe. And he could have been killed. Very easily could have been killed. It was just minor injuries or bruises, and took him to the hospital, inspected him. He was all right. But it could have been a lot worse. And it's compression. Something rolls over you, something falls on you. Chemical. We work with chemicals every day. In some cases, at your house, we don't take precaution. Even at our home, we don't use PPE because we're at house, right? Safety is not only or 9 to 5, or 8 to 5 or 9 to 6. Safety is 24/7. When you walk out and go home, safety continues to be with you. If you don't practice it, it's going to get you. Like for example, this morning, and we do a lot of things on a daily basis because we're used to it. We do the same thing every morning, every day. We get up, we do the same thing, basically, right? You don't think about what sock, what pair of pants or clothing you're going to put on first, the left or the right, right? You just put it on automatically. You don't even think about it. So we do things automatically, yeah, every day. We do things on a daily basis that without even thinking about it. And that's how we work do at work too. We get do a lot of stuff at work that maybe forget to put your PPE for, maybe it's just a couple of seconds or just a few minutes. But all it takes is just one time. That's all it takes. You get distracted. So you could be working with heat or cold, maybe hot items, metal, liquids that could hurt you. Harmful dust. See, harmful dust, it may not affect you that day, particularly that day, but you wait, 20, 30 years from now, and it's eventually going to catch up with you. Like people that smoke, quite a bit. So what happens later on, the results is you develop cancer possibly. In some of these chemicals too, same thing. Light could be radiation, biological. Some of these things can really do some harm to you. So the responsibilities that an employer has is to perform a hazard assessment of the workplace. So before they get a new employee and just throw you in there to a certain position, that's how come the employer has those responsibilities. He needs to know or communicate that there's a certain hazard, a potential hazard for the new employee. And so that's how come the employee has to be trained properly to be able to use the proper PPE and when it's necessary, making sure that you identify and control the physical and health hazards. Physical hazards is something that's going to hurt you right immediately, right? It's a physical hazard. A cut, or puncture or something that's physical. And health hazard is something that's going to affect you maybe in the near future or maybe at the later in life. That's the health hazard. Identify and provide the appropriate and adequate PPE for employees. That's how come when they do the orientation, they're going to give you all the proper PPE, that you're going to need. Always train employees in the use of the care and PPE. Maintain PPE and replace worn or damaged PPE. In some cases, some of these new employees have never been exposed to PPE, equipment or materials or items that need to be used for personal protective personal protective, in any case. So if you don't have that no training, that means that you're going to be able to uh, get some training from the employer or somebody in safety personnel in the office when you do your orientations and be able to prepare the new employee to be able to use the proper PPE whenever needed. Periodically, we review or supposed to be review the update and evaluate the effectiveness of a PPE program. These companies that have a large amount of employees need to have a written PPE program to where the new employee coming in has to go through that and know when he needs to don and use and care for the proper PPE issued to you. Employees should always use proper PPE, attending training sessions like you're doing today. And so care and clean and maintain PPE. Make sure to inform a supervisor of the need to repair or replace PPE. Sometimes, they don't, they hesitate. You keep wearing the same goggles, same glasses, and they're all scratched up and all bent out of shape or not clean. So if you wear them and it's your pair, make sure you clean them up properly, maintain them clean, and have them ready for the next time you use it again. What is a job hazard assessment? A job hazard assessment is a technique that focuses on a job task as a way to identify hazards before they occur. Let's say, for example, you have a task at work. If you don't mind me asking, what is it that you do? What is it that you do at your job? Yeah, supervisor. Okay, you don't do much, right? Maybe you do most, right? So anyway, what do you do? HO también. What about you? También. Supervisor. So, what do you do? Oh, and that's no, but that's good. What do you do? Supervisor. También. No, what you do is you have a task. Let's say for you have a task. This is for your employees too. You have a task in there, and what you do, you sit there and you watch what type of task you're going to be doing. What kind of job you're going to be doing that day? Whether you be offloading a truck or loading a truck, or you're going to be moving pallets, you're going to be moving materials, whatever it is. It's a task you're going to be doing. Okay, so you do an assessment. You do you review the task, then you look at the task and see what potential hazards you might have on that task. Okay, you could possibly have slip, trips, and falls. You may have crushing possibility. You may have falling objects. You may have tripping hazards. You may have slips. You may have punctures. So there's different things that are possibility. Those are dangers. Then what are you going to do to mitigate or control those hazards? Okay, I could use my proper PPE. I could maybe remove the hazard. And a lot of times you cannot remove the hazard. You have to work around it. So you have to either use barriers to prevent people from getting in that area, or maybe you know just removing it could be. But like I said, in a lot of cases you can't remove the hazard, so you have to work around it. So you have to proper PPE is one thing. También same thing. Um, Gloves, boots, steel boots. We had an incident not too long ago here during a operation with a forklift, and they ran over an employee's foot with a forklift. It caused quite a bit of damage. So now they require all employees that working. It doesn't matter if it's a warehouse or office or whatever it is. If you walk into a warehouse, you got to wear some kind of steel protection because in areas, some people or some companies have designated areas where the employees can walk on a certain area or sidewalk, and then designated for forklifts cannot cross that line, or employees vice versa. In this case, the employee must have stepped in the wrong area when the forklift came by, and of course that caused the injury. So it affects the company either directly or indirectly because it affects all the employees in the company. So one person gets injured, and everybody feels it. They feel it too. So so ideally is you focus on that particular incident and make sure that everybody gets the proper protection. It focuses on the relation between the worker and the task, and tools, and work environment. So it has to do with the attitude, the work environment that you have. In some places, you work in cold areas where it affects your body. In other places that you work on, maybe you have to use heavier clothing, uh, eye protection, maybe hard hats. And a lot of people sometimes complain about the hard hats or safety glasses because they're so, they get fogged up because it's cold or too hot or whatever. But that's your last protection. That's your best protection you have. So wear it. Ideally, after you identify uncontrolled hazards, you will take steps to eliminate, reduce them to an acceptable level. And like I said, sometimes you cannot eliminate it. You cannot take it away, but you have to work around it or work with it with an acceptable level. Why is JHA important? Once you know what the hazards, once you know what the hazards are, you can reduce or eliminate them before anyone gets hurt. So that's the reason I was telling you. You look at the task, you analyze it, and see what you can do, what you need to wear, what type of PPE you're gonna be needing to wear that, and then what can you do to eliminate it. It will take a little time to do your JHA, but it's time well worth it. It may take you just a few minutes, a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. It doesn't take that long. Don't make it too elaborate. Don't make it too long. Just take your time, but analyze it, look at it, and after you leave today, you're gonna be looking at every test you do a different way. Because at least I hope so. Because now you're gonna be looking at the job and say, well, if I'm gonna do this job here, how can I do this? If this is a danger, maybe there's a falling object there. There's a potential slip, trips, and falls. So those are potential dangers that you might be encountering during the process, and then how to eliminate them. Just so you make a mental note, and write it down, make a description. So be sure to involve employees in the process. They do the work and often know that the best way to work is more safely. And you guys that are supervisors are actually an extra pair of eyes. That's what you do. Because if you don't do the physical work yourself, you can be of a great help to the employees and assist them in a way that you can best way to do. Because a lot of times the employee working on a particular task is concentrated with that particular section right there. So they're not aware of all the surroundings sometimes. And that's what sometimes we miss it. We That's how come we have cause accident, more liable to cause an accident or be hurt or be caught in the middle of another accident. So this is what I was telling about the job hazard analysis. And there's a form on about the third page from the back on the last one that I gave you. Let me show you. There you go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So if you take just a few minutes, and we'll go over that and I'll help you. So let's say, for example, pick a task, something task that you're probably going to be doing. Maybe offloading a truck, maybe removing some pallets or whatever, a task. Just pick a task, okay? Uh, just anything that you can, or before you were a supervisor. So what were you doing before? Grinding. Okay, so maybe you'll be grinding some material. So you can be grinding maybe some metal, and so that's your task. So the next column here is going to be what about potential hazards? What could be a potential hazard in your task? Okay, right. And what you be working around maybe slips, trips, and falls, slippery area. Maybe you need some hand protection, right? So this is the hazards. Okay, these are the hazards. And the last column here is how can you mitigate, how can you eliminate that hazard? Yeah, using proper PPE, right? Yeah, right. If it's yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Yeah. So the environment there in the area you're gonna be working with is gonna have dust, like you said. You're gonna have flying objects, particles, maybe hot liquid metal, maybe. It could be. So find what the task is, what the dangers are, and how are you going to eliminate those. And the first thing is finding what is the proper PPE. You know, gloves may be required, leather gloves maybe because of the task, right? So it just depends on the task. So that's how you do a job hazard analysis. Okay, you find what the task you're going to be doing. In your case, you may be pulling a trailer. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just using that pulling a trailer. So what's it going to take to pull a trailer? You're going to have to make sure that your back, there's nobody in the back. You're not going to be running over somebody. So always make a visual around your vehicle, right? So those are things you can do to eliminate some of those things. So and then make sure. I'm sure that you guys, some of you, at one time or another, or heard of somebody running over a person or a child, right? Not too long ago, there's a gentleman here in I think Mission somewhere out there. They ran over their own kid, 6 months old. Unfortunately, it's an inexcusable accident, right? Something that could have been preventable, and all because we didn't take just a couple of minutes, few minutes, to walk around the vehicle and check anything behind. Even when you run over your own puppy, don't feel very good. Any questions? Any comments? So, do you understand about the JHA? Do you know how would you would do a JHA now? It gives you an idea how to fill one out, right? So, when you go back to work, just think, look at the picture first. Look at the project you're gonna be doing, and then look at it as maybe what's the task, what's the potential hazards, and then how to eliminate the hazards. So that's how you do it. Watch the worker do the job. List each step in order. Do not make it too broad and too detailed. Don't take too much on it. It just doesn't take very long. Review the steps with the worker and the other workers who do the same job to make sure that you have not left anything out. Yeah, that's that's very important. That you cannot skip the steps, and because that one step is the one that could be a crucial step to be able to protect you or get you save you from getting hurt. How do you do it? It's for each hazard you ask, where is it happening? What type of environment is it? Okay, who or what is it happening to, or exposure? Are you going to be exposed to a chemical or toxic fumes? Could be exposed to maybe electrical slips, something slippery, something wet could get you hurt. What precipitates the hazard trigger? What is it that could be able that's going to be that will start the hazard? The outcome that will occur should it happen in consequence and any other contributing factors. So it's not only one factor; it could be several factors involved. It depends on the task that you have. How do you do it? Establish ways to eliminate or reduce the hazards. Engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment. Do you know the difference between engineering controls and administrative controls? Anybody? The difference on engineering control, it's called administrative controls. If you see a person, let's say, working on an assembly line, for example, okay, and that person working there is constantly calling in sick, maybe like every other week or every 2 weeks, or they call in and say, I can't go to work because my arm hurts or my neck hurts, or, for whatever reason, they start hurting. So they start missing work. And so the company is concerned because they want to take care of the employee. They don't want to lose the employee. So they take care of him. So they say, okay, so she's off every other week or every 2 weeks. So something's causing her to get sick. So what they do, they make a switch. They said, okay, why don't you, Juanita, come over here and you take her place for a while, and then she's going to move over to your place, right? That would be an administrative controls. That's something that the administration does. Okay, that makes a change. So then, let's say Juanita gets same thing. She gets sick, right? And she calls in same thing. Maybe every 2 weeks calls in sick again. So now, okay, they have a problem. Now something's wrong. We got to do something. So then they have engineering controls. Engineering means they have to get a person, an engineer, or somebody to design something, maybe add a platform, maybe an exhaust fan or something. That's an engineering control. They have to spend money to build something specific to maybe alleviate the people having issues or problems with it. Okay, so that's how you. That's the administrative control. So now you see the difference between administrative and engineering controls. Okay, so you use the proper protective equipment necessary for this project too, for this incident, for this task. Personal protective equipment. How to eliminate the hazard if possible. So you start off with the personal protective equipment, including respirators. Administrative controls is workplace controls. They make changes. In engineering controls is when they have to design something. Elimination substitute, that eliminates the exposure when they make the change like that. So if they don't, eventually when you get to that point, and people maybe possible get sick for a long time, maybe lose their life, which is one thing that we don't want to get to that point. Okay, engineering controls. The order of precedence of effectiveness of hazard control is the following: elimination, minimization of the hazard. You see this gentleman here working in that board. He has a uniform, coveralls. He has a jacket, protective. He has a respirator, hard hat. He has the gloves, safety gloves, leather gloves, whatever, hand protection. Then he has some kind of a respirator or a vacuum cleaner, that a grinder that's working there and grinding at the same time is probably vacuuming all the dust, right? So the one on the right with a hood is probably sucking up that poisonous gases, contamination possibly. And the one up on top right, it's maybe an exhaust fan or maybe a blower that's getting rid of all the contamination that you're being exposed to. And like I said, a lot of these people that are working up there, uh, either they lack some kind of training, education as far as safety is concerned, because they don't protect themselves. They work out in the field with no respirators, no hard hat, nothing. You know, and so this contamination will go. And it's not only that, the contamination that you take here, you take it home because they're all covered up in dust, sheetrock, all that stuff, dust, cement, concrete that you work with, and then they go home and what's the first thing comes to the door? The kids, right? Little babies, the kids. Oh, daddy's home and daddy's home. So but they contaminate their kids, their spouses, and stuff like that. So that's how come the family sometimes, suffer from allergies and other sicknesses. Elimination and minimization of the hazard. First choice will always be the eliminating of the hazard. That's the first choice. And enclosure of the hazard, isolation of hazard, removal or redirection of the hazard. And it's included on that diagram here, the picture they're showing you. They're eliminating, they're isolating, or they're in enclosure. Uh, so they have a removal by some way or another, or redirecting the contamination, right? Administrative controls, written operating procedures, work permits, and safe work practices, exposure time limitations, monitoring the use of highly hazardous materials, alarms, signs, warnings, and buddy system. In some cases, you may have to work with a buddy, a friend of yours, maybe that you get along pretty good, and it takes usually two people to work. So use the buddy system, help each other out, and even at sometimes you get to a point to where um, there's a potential job or task that you need to do, and it's going to require maybe two people. Try to get you somebody to help you out. Don't try to be a he-man and pick up something and then get a back injury, because then you'll be in a lot more trouble. Personal protective equipment is acceptable control method in the following circumstances: when engineering controls are not feasible or do not totally eliminate hazard. So that's while engineering controls are being developed. That's when you use the protective equipment. Okay, is acceptable as a control method when safe work practices do not provide sufficient additional protection. So you got to find a way to be able to not get yourself in a point to where it's going to cause you any harm. Written certification that includes identification of workplace evaluated, name of persons conducting the assessment, date of assessment, identification, documentation, certifying completion of hazard assessment. Very important that you keep documentation. I keep this little thing here because sometimes you never know how what happens, and if you document it, you can always rely back in case there's any questions somebody needs. So what happens when when a person, any of us, it's just a normal thing. You go down, maybe down the sidewalk or at a store, and you slip and trip and fall. What's the first thing we do? First thing you're gonna do is look around, see who's laughing at you, right? Right? So see who's looking at you, who laughed at you, who's is gonna make fun of you, So no, that's the first thing. That's normal. It's normal. So that so you look around, and then you get up. Nothing happened to you. You get up and you say, "Oh, it's okay, okay, it's okay, nothing." But then about 2 3 weeks later, then there's a bruise show up or a lump shows up, and you're trying to complain to somebody. Well, I fell down here the other day, and I need for somebody to pay some medical bills, right? So how are you gonna prove that you fell down? You don't, because you didn't document it, right? So documentation is very important. Make sure if there's a person or a witness that saw you, take their name down. It's not necessarily you're going to commit to anything, but what if something happens? What if something worse happens? You have something to fall back onto, right? Some kind of documentation, and you may not even need it. Maybe you know nothing happened. That's it. You're okay. But if something were to happen, or you may need some help or assistance with medical bills, you'll have something that you documented and take. So you know that's helpful to all. It's helpful to in every situation. So, what do you think is this person doing? Right? Yeah. He's possibly exposed, possibly to vapors. He's got all his PPE. He's got a hard hat underneath. He's got a suit. He's probably working in toxic environment, right? Hazard. He's probably working at heights because he's got his fall protection. He's got respirator, and then he's got his safety glasses, and maybe working with extreme high light or bright light, or maybe welding surfaces. I don't know, but you get to see. So this guy is got this all his adequate PPE required, and so that gives you a sign as to gives you an idea. So what is PPE? PPE is clothing and accessories that protect you from certain types of environment that you work with. How about create a barrier? Remember that the barrier, the PPE is a barrier that protects you. It's between you and the danger. That's your last resort. Okay. So head protection. So head protection depends on the environment that you're gonna be working. If you're working in an electrical environment or a close electrical power lines, that's a different type of hard hat. You have to make sure specify what the proper head protection you're gonna need for that environment. How about eye and face protection? It may be dust, maybe toxic fumes, maybe poisonous gases, maybe different things. So that's how come you have to know exactly what type of protection, PPE, face protection you need. Hearing protection. Anybody has any teenagers at home that you can hear them down about 3 blocks away? You can feel them coming in. Your windows and your floor start to vibrate. I used to have one like that. So anyway, but yeah, but they have no idea because they have never been educated as far as to what type of damage that could possibly do to yourself. With that high noise area. Of course, the older we get, it's sometimes start losing your hearing. Besides everything else, but you start losing some of your hearing because you've been exposed to a lot of high noise at your time when you're earlier age, and so we didn't think about those things. But now it's catching up to us. So you know, in my case, my wife is a counselor, was a counselor. She's a retired counselor. So they have very light voice. They're very low when they talk to a person, little kids. They are counselors. They're not disciplinarians. Disciplinarians, I mean, they holler at you and scream at you and point finger, and but counselors are very light spoken. So my wife has a very light voice. So when she talks to me, you know, I struggle sometimes to hear what she's saying, especially when she gets up and walks away from me and she's talking. So I wait until she gets back. Yeah, because I mean, sometimes it's difficult to hear what you're saying. So, but she understands what I went through, and but it happens as you grow older, and the damage that's been done, it's in the long term. Okay, so hand protection, very important. Hand protection depends on what type of job you be doing, whether it's hot, liquid, medical. You need rubber gloves, special gloves, arms. If you need just the hands or the arms too, you may be working in areas to where you have to dip your hands in a chemical or some kind of fluid that possibly contamination to your skin. And so there's three ways of getting your body exposed to dangerous chemicals, dangerous environment. It's by inhalation. You can inhale dust, chemicals, fumes. That's a contamination into your body. That's inhalation. You have absorption. Anything that falls on your body and your body absorbs the chemical or gases. And then you have ingestion, something that you eat with. Somebody brings you a taco and it's bad, and you're gonna get sick, right? So that's ingestion. Respiratory protection. I cannot stress enough how important that is on the respiratory protection, because most of the time, what you inhale now is going to affect you in a long time. Anybody has ever heard of H2S? H2S, hydrogen sulfide. You guys have. And so, get exposed. It smells like rotten egg. Okay. And usually it's around sewer lines, sewer pipes, uh, waste that has waste turns into H2S. So you inhale it, smell like rotten egg. You can smell it for a little bit, and after a while, you lose the smell. Right? You can't smell anymore. It doesn't mean that the gas is gone, the poison is gone. It's just that your senses of smelling has been deadened. You can't feel them anymore. Se te durmieron, So it doesn't mean you're safe. It's just you just can't smell it, but it's still there. So it's very dangerous, very poisonous. This show you here on selection of PPE depends on the environment you're going to be working with. Employers should become aware of the different types of PPE. In most cases, these companies wear the vest. You've seen those vests, right? In most of the cases, because there's a lot of movement, forklift training, guys driving trucks and backing up and hooking up trailers, unhooking up, because you have people designated to help out, right? In some cases, they have spotters. Spotters use the vest for high visibility. There's a respirator. They have cartridges, but you need to know what type of environment you're going to be exposed to have the proper cartridge for the respirator. And in other cases, sometimes they use respirators in places that it's going to require an SCBA. SCBA means a self-contained breathing apparatus. It's a tank that they put behind their back, or and work in the environment that's a continuous working environment, or it could be a respirator used for escape purposes or for rescue purposes. So just depends on what environment you're going to get involved with, but have to have the proper cartridges for the respirator. And if you have to have a special mask or respirator, then you have to have a doctor's evaluation of your face for it to be fit tested, because all of us have a different type of face. We can't use your mask or your mask, or vice versa. So you have to be fit tested. Then you have spectacles, glasses, safety glasses. Make sure that they have side shields. And so um, there's also welder's helmet, and a hard hat. And depends on the environment. Also, bottom left, the leather gloves. If you'll be working as a welder, most of these welders, that's what they use, right? Leather gloves. Then you have people that are dipping their hands in, let's say, dishwashers in a big restaurant, something like that. They probably use these type of gloves, or medical field, right? They use gloves up maybe to their elbows, because they don't know what kind of exposure you're going to be exposed to. Then you have steel toe boots. Anybody uses that hearing protection before? The plugs, yeah. Okay, and then you have coveralls. Depends on the environment. Okay. In the oil field, they use the fire FRCs, retardant clothing. Yeah. Using PPE. For PPE to be effective in protecting you, use it in the manner you have been trained. Use it only for specific hazards for each for its design. Eye and face protection. So eye and face protection is protecting your eyes. Eye hazards include flying objects, flying particles, molten liquids, metal, chemicals, acid, caustic liquids, chemicals. Any of you here, you mow your own grass, cut your own grass? Yeah. I used to do all of it until I got old. So I don't. I only do, and I told my wife I'm gonna do it on easy payments. I um I cut the grass one day and then mow. Trim the next day. Yeah, it's too much. At this age, yeah, it's too much. You can't do something. You have to know your limits. And certainly, you have to know how much you can do, and eventually, it's gonna happen to all of you, all of us. I'm already there, so I can do one thing one day and then do it the next day. And if it's too much, I'd rather it's gonna stay there. It's not going anywhere. It's gonna wait for me anyway. So make sure you wear PPE, hearing protection, eyeglass. It's very easy, because It's happened before. It happens to anybody. I had particles in my eye fall in, and then start trying to struggle to get a little whatever it is and fall in your eye, right? Or you inhale something and you find out it's a piece of grass or a fly or something like that. So it's very easy to get complacent, and so there's potential hazards of gases or vapors, potentially infected material, or potentially harmful light radiation. So, I, and I did it before. Like I said, I'm human too. I made stuff. I did stuff in my time that I shouldn't do. I shouldn't have done, but I did it. I got fortunately I got away with it. But when you mow the grass and you running out of gas, shut the engine off, right? But the engine's still hot. You start to pour gasoline in, and those fumes can really get you in trouble if you do it when it's hot. So let the engine cool off or fuel the tank before you start off. This is where you start off a full tank, right? So easy to get so complacent, man. It doesn't take very long. Blink of an eye. Remember, blink of an eye. Selecting eye and face protection. Selecting suitable eye and face protection for employees should take into consideration the following elements: the ability to protect against specific workplace hazards, should fit properly and be reasonably comfortable to wear, should provide unrestricted vision and movement, should be durable and cleanable, should allow unrestricted functioning to any other required PPE. So if you wear something that's comfortable, you should be able to be aware of all your surroundings. In some cases, some piece of PPE is too big or too tight, uncomfortable, and it's not going to make you want to keep it, or you would want to take it off. That big mistake. Corrective glasses and eye protection. Spectacles with protective lenses, goggles, worn over corrective spectacles, goggles with incorporated corrective lenses. In some cases, it takes more than just the safety glasses. You may need a shield or other protection in case you work for liquids, potential dangerous liquids. They splash, and could get you in the eye. I was trying to add some chlorine tablets to the container, and so it was about 9:30 at night. That's usually the time I go to bed. So um, I just went over to the little room and got the chlorine, and I know that the container keeps water in it, you know. So I said, no, I didn't bring my safety glasses, so I'm gonna throw the tablet in there and get out of the way, right? And that's exactly what happened. I put the tablet in there, and there's a splash of water coming out. If it would have hit me in my face, in the eye, it's chlorine, right? So what does chlorine do? It's gonna burn you, right? So, but I did it in a safe way. So because I'm conscious what I do. And still, I still have accidents. I still get hurt. Um, you know, your body is not like it used to be 20, 30 years before. I was walking in the morning one day, and so my body was faster than my legs. So I just couldn't move fast enough. And there goes. I went face first to the sidewalk and had a bruise on my face. My hand swelled up, and I thought I broke my hand. But it happens to everybody, and all it takes is just a blink of an eye. Like I said, you have to know your limits. How much I know how much I can do now, and how much I cannot do. So I have to depend on somebody else to do what I wasn't before used to do it. So it's going to happen to all of us at one time or another, and but we have to know that take precautions and take care of yourself before it happens. Okay, and you guys that are safety, and then we have to be an example. I cannot go around the street and driving like a wild nut, and have to and then tell them, "Oh, you're the safety guy." What example am I saying, right? So I have to be an example and believe in what you do. Inspection, maintenance of eye protection. Keep lenses clean, daily inspection and glasses and cleaning. Replace pitted lenses like dirty lenses can be source of reduced vision. Headbands, proper storage. Head protection. Hard hats. Hard hats are needed to protect against falling objects, accident, impact, electrical contact. Use an electrical rated hard hat uh, when there is a potential for contact to circuits. And that's what I mentioned earlier today. So if you want to be working around electrical items, electrical wiring, make sure you have the right hard hat to work in that area. So falling objects depends on what the height is. We had a gentleman lost his life several years ago on working, trying to pick up a heavy item. And so once he picked it up, they were about maybe 15 feet high, approximately 15 feet high, and the item weighed, the item that fell off the forklift was about 150. So 150 pounds at 15 feet high, a heart is not going to save you, not going to protect you at all. So you have to know what you're going to get into before you start the process. They didn't follow procedures, they didn't follow protocol, and so unfortunately, he lost his life. 52-year-old man. So it doesn't take very much. So because they didn't follow procedures, all they had to wait was maybe 5 minutes. They were in a hurry. Head protection in general, protective hard hats and hard hats should be the following: resist penetration, absorb the shock of blow, and be water resistant and slow in burning. But the hard hats have to be inspected prior to use every day because they sometimes need to be replaced. The bed here. There's Class A, Class B, Class C, bump heads, not ANSI approved. So this a bump cap is just it protects you against small bumps, maybe lower items. You walk around there, protects you from getting your head banged up, pretty bad. Or hard hat is most likely for items that are a little bit more higher elevation, or maybe higher items that could fall on your head. But it gives you a little much better protection than the bump cap. Daily inspection. Remember, the daily inspection of hard hat shell suspension system, other accessories for holes, cracks, tears, and other damage. You know what a suspension on a hard hat is, right? Suspension on a hard hat? Yeah. That's what goes around here and that protects your head. That's the suspension. That's what holds your hard hat. Okay. So do not store protective headgear in the direct sunlight. Some cleaning agents can weaken the shells of a hard hat. You think that's usable again? All right. Tell you what, why don't you take a little break? Okay? Take a little break. Short break. foot injury, it's no fun. We had also make sure that you also inspect your foot protection, steel toe boots or tennis shoes, whatever you wear. I was having a feedback on my thing here. It's okay. I got it. Yeah, I shut it off. Shut it off. Anyway, so also inspect your shoes or boots before you wear them. We had an incident. The gentleman had a didn't inspect it. He got bit with a brown recluse inside the boot when he stuck his foot in there, and you know what a brown recluse is, right? So he almost lost his foot. He had surgery, I think, a couple of surgeries. So just make sure that you inspect your shoes, even your shoes. They get together and they're actually found in dark places. And my son had found a scorpion in his house, inside his house. And so we never know what to expect, right? Always be prepared for the unexpected. Foot hazards. Heavy objects such as barrels, tools that might roll over on or fall onto your feet, sharp objects such as nails, spikes that might pierce or the soles of your uppers and ordinary shoes, molten metal that might splash, hot, slippery, or wet surfaces. Also, make sure that the electrical hazards. If you have ever you experienced anybody has anybody ever experienced a shock, you touch a wire and it's wet or damp area, you kind of a funny feeling, right? Electrical. What happens is if you touch the wire, what's the reaction that's going to happen when it shocks you? It's going to make your hands go like this, right? So you can't let go. You're going to have to, somebody pull you off or knock you off your feet with with something. So what you do when you test it, do it with the back of your hand. This way, your hand is not going to be able to go backward, right? So you're able to pull yourself free from the cord. So just keep that in mind that possibly if you ever have that experience. So types of foot protection: leggings, metatarsal. You know what metatarsal guards are? Anybody? Does you know metatarsal guards? Metatarsal guards is the one that protects the front of your foot. So that's a protection. So in some cases, in some employment or some employers have places that have required metatarsal protection because you work with different type of materials or possibly something that rolls over your foot. So that's how come they require. So metatarsal guards, toe guards, combination foot and chin guards, safety guards. This gentleman up here on the upper left hand corner, what do you think he's working on? He's grinding something or torch. He's using a torch. There's hot sparks, molten metal, and so he's got all kinds of protection. Look at his steel toe boots, metatarsal. He's got chin guards. Look at his coveralls, helmet. So he's working with all types of, but he's got the proper protection. It seems like, right? And then the bottom left, that's a steel toe boot. It looks like it has metatarsal protection. The one on the upper right hand corner, same type, metatarsal protection on shoes. Um, the guy on the middle there with the white overall or coveralls or protection, somehow he's probably working on something that's liquid exposure possible for chemicals. He's got a respirator, toxic fumes maybe. And the bottom right, he's lifting a block. Do you think he's using proper lifting technique? Yeah, that's what it looks like. Huh? He's squatting, right? He's squatting down, picking it up. So he's not reaching over. Inspect footwear prior to use. Look for and replace it if necessary. Cracked, torn, or worn uppers. Wear holes. If there's a hole in your shoes, if it's wear that's noticeable, too much wear, tears, cracks, loss of thread or bottoms. Just like when you buy a tire, your car. So when the thread is gone, you probably need a new pair of tires, right? So it's the same thing with the shoes. So maybe slippery. Separation between soles and uppers, broken buckles and laces, check soles or embedded pieces of metal or items. Heart and arm protection. Why use hand protection? Well, there's a possibility that you might be contaminated or by absorption harmful substances. Stick your hand in something liquid. That's a possibility. So you have to use the proper PPE when you work with that type of material or environment. Chemical or thermal burns, electrical dangers, bruises, abrasions, cuts, punctures, absorption of chemicals, fractures, and amputations can occur. So, you have to be able to have the proper PPE, depending on the environment or the type of work you're going to be doing. Um, in some cases, like I said, people working in liquids or drums, or submersible material that you have to put in there. So it means you have to stick your hand on your arm, and you have to use the proper protection for that sort of work. Types of hand protection. You can see here on the far left, upper left hand corner, they probably work with liquids. And if you work with something that's probably slippery, too slippery, get the proper PPE to where whatever item you're going to get or you're working with is not going to slip off your hands. And especially if you work with liquids and you lose a container, and the first thing that happens when it's hits on the floor, it's going to splash right back into your face, right? So use the proper protection for that too. Factors that influence selection of protective gloves. What type of chemicals are handled? So nature of the contact or total immersion. Are you going to stick your hands away in the drum and tanks? And how long are you going to have the contact? What duration of contact you'll be having? Area requiring protection: hand only or forearm or arm. Grip requirements. If you're going to be handling dry, wet, or oily items, you're going to have the proper PPE to where you'll be able to have control of the item you're working with. How about thermal protection? If you're going to be too hot, um, size and comfort, abrasions, resistance and requirements. It's just like um, if you want to forget all your problems, all the worries, wear tight shoes. That'll make you forget anything, right? Yeah. I wore a pair of boots here the first part, I think Tuesday, sometime Tuesday. I went to do a training and I put a wrong pair of boots. Oh my God, it was so, you know, it, it was so painful by the time I got home. Just shoot them off my feet. I'm not going to wear those things anymore. So, yeah, if you wear something uncomfortable, whether it's gloves, hard hat, whatever it is uncomfortable, you're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be doing the job that you're wanting to do safely. Selection of protective gloves. In general, gloves fall into four groups: gloves made of leather, canvas, metal mesh, fabric, coated fabric, gloves, chemical and liquid resistant gloves, insulating, and rubber gloves. So it just depends on what you're working with, okay? Care of protective gloves. Protective gloves should be inspected before each use for tears, punctures, defects, and damage. You know, just like if you're working. Oh, am I unplugged? What? Give me a minute. Everything's plugged in. Give me low battery, so I don't know. We'll find out, right? If it goes blank, we'll find out, right? So I hope not. So anyway, choice. So if you have punctures, if you're working with gloves that work with electricity, they're special gloves, right? But electricity travels through the least resistance area. There's a gentleman that had an accident that when they give him a pair of gloves, they usually take them and blow into them and see if it holds air, right? So this gentleman didn't inspect his gloves, and so when he punched into it, so when he's working, he had some kind of a accident at work. Bless you. Had an accident job, and he got shocked. So the electricity traveled to the little pinhole on his gloves, and I think almost killed him. So that's what I heard. But anyway, it travels to the least resistance. So electricity is very tricky, very dangerous. So you have to have the proper PPE for it. Okay. Any gloves with impaired protective ability should be discarded and replaced. Carefully evaluate any reuse of chemical resistant gloves. So make sure that whatever protection you don't take any shortcuts. Don't try to save a couple of bucks. So hearing protection. And we went through that. You have any kids that love that high noise area? Educate them. It's your turn. Teach them that eventually they're gonna lose their hearing. They won't listen to you anyway. So they're gonna do what they want. So, and like I said, I had one of those at home too until he grew up. But good boy. I'm plugged in. Yeah, but it showed me a signal that no battery. But I'm plugged in. I don't know why. Yeah. So I said we'll find out if that thing goes blank. So anyway, yeah, high noise areas using power saws, impact tools, etc. Off the job when shooting using power tools. If you use firearms and you go out there shooting range like that, make sure you have your proper hearing protection. You mow your grass, or use a weed eater, or you do something high noise area at your house. Same thing. Use your earplugs or some kind of hearing protection, and protect your hearing. So replace it if it's worn out, broken. Hearing protectors immediately. Okay, and it gives you a little chart here. We'll go a little further. You guys, what's a permissible level that OSHA says so you can work at so many minutes or so many hours at a high whatever decibel it is. Usually, I think it's about 85 decibels, which is normal. Types of hearing protection. Okay, and here you go. Okay, so a pile driver. You know what a pile driver is? Anybody? Yeah, pile driver. The one when they build bridges, talking those concrete, they bang them with a hammer. Yeah. So that's a pile driver. That's 112 decibels. That's what usually it put out. That's what they're saying. So normal speaking voice, grinders, the speaking voice is between 60 and 70 decibels. Okay. Look at the table here. Permissible noise exposures. This is permissible. Okay. In 8 hours, 90 decibels. OSHA says permissible for 8 hours at 90 decibels. At 92 decibels, it's permissible 92 for 92 decibels, so at 6 hours. Look at the bottom one there. 15 minutes at 115 decibels. It's not very much, right? So that's probably blow your head off, or pretty close to it. So this is if anybody ever experienced ringing in their ears? Yeah. And the older you get, the easier it is. You start hearing the little bing noise in your ear, right? Because you've been exposed to some of the high noise areas, so it's probably affected your hearing now. Difficulty hearing normal conversations. That's me, you know, and especially with my wife. I mean, she has, like I said, she has a very light voice, so I had to go. Say, huh? What did you say? So, and like I said, she tends to walk up and then walk away. So I have to wait till she gets back because I'm not going to ask her again. Can't hear anyway. So noises are fuzzy or muffled, and usually I can tell when she's saying something. You just can't understand exactly everything she says, right? It has to be, and it's easier for me if I look at her because this way I can kind of almost read lips. No, but not quite. So, but it's harder, and that's how come there's a lot of people, older people, that go into hearing aids, you know, because their hearing has been damaged. At one time or another, they were exposed to high noise levels, and frac jobs. One time it's frac jobs, all those frac jobs had to have all these great big diesel pumps, they're working up there. You can feel the ground shaking when they're pumping the ground, That's how loud they are. But if you don't hear hearing protection, Even with that in mind, when they use that, even after you use it, the noise is I mean, it's tremendous. But and it affects your hearing. Eventually, it's going to affect your hearing. Personal protective equipment, respiratory protection. This is the respiratory protection. Now, these guys, if these guys were out there, all those guys working in construction, installing, cement and mixing cement and um, sheetrock or cutting granite and stuff like that, seeing all that dust, they're taking it home. If they were just to maybe have an extra pair of clothing and change before you get home, and you don't contaminate your kids, because your kids are breathing the same things you wear, even though the kids are not working with you, they're still getting contaminated at home. Okay, so make sure that use the proper protection. Now, they show all these respirators here. A lot of times, what to do, it depends on the environment. You're gonna need a special mask for a respirator, and they have to do a fit test. A fit test is they have to, because your face and his face are not the same shape, so it has to be fit tested to your face. And that's how come they have to a proper, respirator. It depends on the environment you're gonna be working with. Respirator requirements. Employees need to be medically cleared to wear a respirator before commencing use. A physician or other licensed health or care professional needs to medically evaluate employees to determine under what conditions they can safely use respirators. So it depends on the environment. Look at the respirator here with the cartridges. So in most cases, if you have doing paint job or you're doing other types of toxic chemicals or other stuff that you need respirators, you need to find out what type of respirator cartridge you're going to be requiring for that environment, because not all the cartridges are going to be able to be used on the jobs. Well, yeah, but then right. Well, I mean, depending on what respirator you're going to be using. You're going to be using cartridge respirator, or you're going to be using the face respirator. The cartridge, yeah, as long as you get the proper cartridge for the type of chemical or environment you're going to be working with, you're going to be using dust, or you're going to be using fumes, or you're going to be using gases. So the respirators cartridge are going to be different. So it just depends on what environment you're going to be exposed to. So that's the type of cartridge you need to find out what cartridge is going to be able to be safe for you. Well, as long as you get the information, yeah, yeah. If let's say for example, you're gonna be painting a car. Okay, just an example. You're gonna painting a car, and then she's going to be working with maybe fumes. So they're different, different gases and stuff like that. In your case, son del paint, thinners and stuff like that. So the cartridge is gonna be different than what she's gonna be using. You can same respirator, but different cartridge. See, and you can select your own as long as you know exactly what you're gonna be what type of I mean, a cartridge you need. It usually tells you what you can do on those cartridges. Tells you what they're gonna be good for. Yeah. No, no, no. Now, okay, when you do on the fit testing, you need a medical evaluation. On the but fit testing is not for this is a cartridge, no. Because you can use his or him as long as it's you want to use his sanitary, or whatever, fine. But the one I'm talking about is, let's say, I'm going to show you here, like these type of respirators. Okay, these type of respirators, your face and his face are not the same shape, so that's how come they had to do a fit testing. Fit testing means they have to, como que dice, un mold to find out your shape, and they order your mask to fit your face. So your face cannot be borrowed by anybody to use. No, your face is mask is your mask. That's it. So that's where you need fit testing the mask. But as far as like this one here on the bottom, you see that on the bottom here. So these don't need to be fit tested here. It's just these up on top. Okay, those are full face. So you got it? Yeah. Okay, body protection. In addition to cuts and radiation, the following are examples of workplace hazards that could cause bodily injury. It could be temperature extremes, it's too hot, hot splashes from molten metals and other hard liquids, potential impact from tools, machinery, and materials, and hazardous chemicals. That's where you need the body protection. In some cases, you may need an apron, you may need a face shield, you may need some kind of head protection, because you may have liquids splashing on you or whatever it is. And then that's when you need, you need to find out what environment you're going to be involved with to be able to get the proper PPE, you know, associated with the protection to protect yourself. These are examples of body protection, okay? For example, you may need laboratory coats in the medical field or any lab that maybe work with hazardous environment, bodily fluids, stuff like that. You need type of total protection, face shield, face mask. You don't want to contaminate yourself with, uh, biological or body fluids or blood or anything like that. So you need all the protection you can get. Laboratory coats may be necessary. Coveralls in some cases. How about vests? Same thing. Jackets, aprons. So they show you different types of protection here: surgical gowns, vests. In some cases where you have too much traffic, forklifts, make sure you have your vest available because you're gonna be visible. You don't want to stand somebody didn't see you and run over you. So you have to have full protection. PPE is it's your protection. Use the right PPE for the hazard. Inspect your PPE before using. Replace damaged or worn PPE. Store your PPE properly so it will be ready for next use. And keep your PPE clean. Notify your supervisor if you need a new PPE. So just make sure that the PPE that's handed over to you or assigned to you, that you maintain it because it's yours. Maintain it properly cleaned and sanitary, because as soon as you get done, clean it up and have it ready for the next use. You don't want to have to wait and clean it up prior to having to go to work again, because then you may be in a hurry to get to the job, right? So you have it clean, put it away, store it up in a safe place, and then it's ready to go to be used in the next time. Whistleblower. You know what a whistleblower is? You understand what a whistleblower? OSHA's whistleblower protection program enforces the provisions of more than 20 federal law protecting employees from retaliation for, among other things, raising or reporting concerns about hazards or violations of various workplace safety and health. Employees who believe that they have experienced retaliation in violation of one of these laws may file a complaint with OSHA. So, how long do you have to be able to file a complaint? 30 days. 30 days. If you don't file in 30 days, borrón y cuenta nueva. Okay? So you have 30 days to report a violation. Let's say, for example, sometimes you have a disgruntled employee that walks out because, for whatever reason, he just walked out, he quit. So he may go to OSHA or call OSHA and tell them, so, you know what, there's a certain violation that I've seen there, and then so OSHA does not take all the calls and say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go out there." And no, they find out whether it's a reasonable complaint, and then they'll come over and probably do an investigation, probably do an audit and a check, walk around, walk through, and go through that. But in some cases, like I said, OSHA comes también cuando viene some kind of complaint. So, and then if a person files a complaint, then that's where your protection, whistleblower protection, comes in. So they should not retaliate against you, or demote you, or terminate you because you could file a complaint. That's against the law. So OSHA will have. That's how come OSHA has a protection. Okay. Any questions on that? Did everybody understand what JHA is? JHA, job hazard analysis. So when you go to a certain particular task, you look at the task first, analyze it, and so what are the potential hazards, get your proper PPE for that task, and then how are you going to eliminate that task? I mean, the dangers. Okay. Which one? Hazard analysis? Oh, maybe maybe I got you confused. Maybe I got you confused. So you wanted to know about, for example, microphone, get my microphone. Okay, so what was that? Okay, a hazard analysis, job hazard analysis is, for example, every time you have a job. If you do one thing today, and let's say, for example, next week you're going to do something different, that's a different job hazard analysis. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have to continuously doing because there could be a potential different hazard on that instance at different time. So what you do, in oil field they used to call it a JSA, job safety analysis, which same thing as job hazard analysis. What you do is you look at the job first, what you're going to do, then analyze it. First, you analyze it and see what potential hazards you might have in the situation. It could be the same thing you do at home. You know, when you do you work at home, are you going to be? Let's say I'm going to cook fried chicken today. Okay, so okay, you're going to prepare the chicken the whole bit. So you look at the whole thing. So what are the potential hazards? Starting to cook the chicken. Okay, oil, heat. How about your sharp knife? Okay, slip, trips, and falls, and the other one you slip. Okay, those are hazards. Okay, so your job hazard. I mean your job or your task is going to be prepare to fried chicken or whatever it is. You know, at the left hand side. Then you do all the hazards. Everything hazard could be different. Only one, two, or three. It could be a whole bunch. Doesn't matter. You know, but describe what your hazards, potential hazards you might have, and then do how can I mitigate or eliminate those hazards or work around them. Because in some cases, those hazards you cannot eliminate completely. You cannot take them away. You have to work around them. So how you going to work around them? Make sure you have your PPE, safety glasses. You ever cook anything that splashes at you? The grease? You have safety glasses? No, I know you don't. Most of us don't. Most of us. So that's how. From now, when you leave today, you're gonna have a different view, or you're gonna work differently. You're gonna look at it a different way than when you came in. Now, every time you're gonna do something, it doesn't matter what you do, even at the office. You know, how many teachers back then used to get on top of the chair and try to reach for the light, change a light bulb, or something like that. You know, too many accidents occurred from that because somebody didn't think about and they turned the wheelchair, I mean the chair, turned around and knocked them on the floor, right? Then they go to doctor and make claim and workers comp and a whole bit, you know. So, but if you do a JHA, job hazard analysis on everything that you do, a task, you may be cutting the grass, you may be washing clothes, you may be whatever it is, it's a job you're gonna be doing. So you analyze it first, you find out what the job is, you find out potential hazards. Then those are potential, okay? Then how can you mitigate or eliminate those hazards? Yeah. And one thing is PPE. Another thing is maybe pulling the cord out of the way. You don't have a tripping hazard. Maybe dry up the floor. Maybe you have slips, trips, and falls. So those are potential hazards. And how do you eliminate it? And you're doing that, removing the cord. We used to have people that, you know, in the oil field, te daban un incentive. They give you a $10 gift card or whatever it is if you reported so many incidents, you know, potential hazards, you know, and they went crazy making those $10 cards, you know. Pero it got to a point where, oye, pues take the cord off. You don't have to report it cada rato, you know, right? Every time you turn around, everybody's reporting on the cord. What's the first? Yeah, eliminate. Take the cord off and don't make it a tripping hazard anymore. You know, So it's kind of funny, for yeah, it was. So they got to a point where they abused the system. And so that's what people do sometimes, abuse the system, and how come people get hurt? But if you eliminate the hazard, and sometimes it's impossible to eliminate the hazard, but you remember that PPE is the last defense between you and the hazard. Okay, that's your last defense. If you don't use PPE or you neglect to use it, and something happens to you, it's because what? You didn't use your PPE, right? That's what happens. Sometimes people get hurt. Any questions, comments? I'm gonna have another quiz, Akeem. In this, I gave you a pre, right? Now it's a post. It's after the exam. Now it's gonna show me the question. First, you show me how much you knew. Now it's gonna show me how much you learned. And then I'll ask you, what is something that stuck to you? What is something that you learned today from this training?
I'm gonna eat out. I'm not gonna cook.
No more fried chicken. Interesting, but you start to think about it. It's a job. You're doing it how?
I need one. I gave her mine. Can we do this one already, right?
Yeah, okay, that was first one done?
Yes.
So that's another one I'm gonna pick up after the class, okay? It's on 4 sheets, four. I think they should be preparing the certificates and then we'll bring over. I'm sorry? I think so. What I'm gonna do is just, be picking up, last paperwork and, wait for the certificates, then I'm gonna bring them over. And, I went ahead